audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
Exploring faith and the future. Neil Johnson and Bible teacher Dr. Kameel Majdali.
As we have been unpacking all sorts of really fabulous things about the Bible, we're in the New Testament, Kameel, and we've talked about the Gospels, we've talked about the book of Acts, but there's other writings in the New Testament. Sometimes they're called the epistles. What does that mean?
Epistles, of course, are letters. I say of course, but it's not evident. They are letters that are written either to churches or to individuals. Now, we've got, in a sense, two types of epistles. One, and the main group, are the ones written by Paul the Apostle. And then the other group are the ones written, as we call the general epistles, not just by Paul, but it could be from people like James, Peter, and of course John. Those are the other authors of New Testament epistles. These documents, of course, we believe are God's inspired word. And the epistles begin with the book of Romans. The book of Romans has, just in its own right, changed history. The book of Romans inspired Martin Luther, the great reformer, half a millennia ago, especially that wonderful verse, "The just shall live by faith," which is repeated not just in Romans, but I think Galatians and I believe Hebrews, but it's actually quoted from Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. That's where it comes from. Romans is the most systematic treatise of Christian doctrine we can imagine. It is apparently the longest letter of the ancient world, perhaps the longest letter ever. It's a letter, even though it's 16 chapters in length. Romans has had a phenomenal impact on the Christian church and indeed the world itself. We then, of course, have 1st and 2nd Corinthians. 1st and 2nd Corinthians written to the same church, a church in Greece, Corinth, on the Peloponnesian Peninsula, where they actually had two ports leading to two different seas. The thing about the Corinthian church is that they were genuinely born again, and we could even argue spirit-filled. But because of their carnality and because of the worldliness of their environment, there was this immaturity, there was this compromise, there was even putting up with a man who had his father's wife and all that. So Paul was basically practicing church discipline long distance.
And Romans and those letters to the Corinthians written by the Apostle Paul, and Kameel, sometimes the Apostle Paul listed with the greatest thinkers of all time.
I would say he's one of the top 2 or 3 people that ever lived as far as historical impact. And yes, the Epistle to the Corinthians and Romans alone are monumental. That's not even touching the other epistles of Paul, of which traditionally there are 12. Some people would say there are 13 if you count Hebrews, although Hebrews does not mention the author at all. All the other epistles that Paul wrote do have his name. But I do have a sermon, which I'm not going to preach here, of course, but it comes from Philippians chapter 3. And the sermon is about how did Paul change the world? He was so highly influential, but how did he do it? And in summary, he did it because he was prepared to let go of everything in his life, good, bad, and ugly, including his education, his pedigree, his career, his connections, the whole lot. He was willing to let go of everything so he could be hands-free to take hold of Christ.
Faith and the Future with Neil Johnson and Dr. Kameel Majdali from Teach All Nations. For more from Dr. Majdali, including books and DVDs on prophecy, Bible commentaries, plus today's and other episodes of Faith and the Future, go to vision.org.au.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.